Chapter 216. The priests as spies. Already the next day, the strongest were picked in the palaces and armed at once and practised in the use of the weapons. But the weaker ones were first fed for a couple of weeks, so that they could recover their strength. Only then, also, they were trained to use the weapons. The elderly slaves, of course of both genders, were given lighter weapons, but they were not allowed to practice its use. But they had to care of certain domestic tasks and to look after the youth. There were also daily envoys from the chief priests who came to the 10 to see what was going on, as well as secret informers who listened in on the talk here and there to see if it was not treacherous. But by the third day, the 10 knew exactly what the chief priests were up to and knew how to behave, so that not a single word was uttered by the whole enormous army that might arouse the suspicion of the highly distrustful chief priests. But the more the slaves were trained and showed their skills, the more spies were sent by the chief priests, who looked into and sniffed at everything, what was said and done and undertaken. This angered the 10 and prompted them to go to the chief priests, where they were received with great distinction. When they were asked by the chief priest what was their important concern, they said, "You know quite well that we 10 are acting honestly, and you also know how far our ingenuity and our wisdom reaches. You know how the aristocrats had to dance to our insight and our advice, and to their great disadvantage, because now everyone has a few more pounds of gold in his closet, but he now also has to work for himself and eat his little bread with the sweat of his face, or he must hire day workers, to whom he surely must pay an expensive wage. But we have an invincible force in our hands, with which we can always empty the gold closets of the aristocrats, if we wanted to, and all their gold is as good as totally ours. Look, we have calculated all this and thought to ourselves when we redeemed the slaves. Demand as much as you want. Today we will pay you, but tomorrow we will take 4 times as much from you. Is this alone not a plan to your advantage, which cannot be paid in gold, not to mention the great undertaking which we have in front of us? And still are we surrounded daily by thousands of spies from your side who do not understand our fine words, and then often maliciously provide you with the worst kind of news about us. Behold, this we know quite well, and this is why we have come to you, to lay down our office before you, because you do not trust us. For one suspicion awakes another. If you don't trust us, we do not trust you, and therefore rather resign our duties, so that the distrust against us will end. Here the chief priests began to appease the 10 again, gave them lavish gifts, and implored them to resume their office. And now, with the advantage of being allowed to continue their military training for another quarter of a year, and only then to go out into effective service. The 10 were content with this, having once again achieved what they really wanted to achieve, and then rejoined their large army.